I pulled into the driveway just before sunset, my hands still warm from the steering wheel. At first, I thought I parked wrong. My suitcase sat by the porch, half open, clothes spilling out like something had exploded. For a second, I just stared. Then I saw the door. Locked. I walked up slowly, my heart beating in a strange, steady way. I tried my key. It didn't turn. The door opened from inside. Diane stood there, arms crossed, lips curved into a thin smile. "You're back," she said, like I had been gone too long. Behind her, Mark stood in the hallway. He didn't move, didn't speak. "What is this?" I asked. "This," she said, stepping forward, "is me fixing a mistake that lasted 7 years. This house is my son's. You're done here." My throat tightened, but not from shock. Something colder settled in my chest. "Mark," I said. He looked away. Diane pushed my suitcase with her foot. "Take your things and go." We changed the locks. Neighbors were watching. I could feel their eyes. I looked at the house, the windows, the door. And then, slowly, I almost smiled. I stood there longer than I should have. The street was quiet, but not silent. Curtains moved. Doors cracked open just enough for people to watch without being seen. 7 years. 7 years of small cuts. Diane's voice telling me how to cook, how to clean, how to speak. 7 years of, "You should do it this way," and in this family, we don't do that. I stayed quiet. I told myself it was love. That Mark would step in one day. That things would balance out. They never did. Instead, she moved in, took over the kitchen, then the living room, then every conversation. And Mark? He started repeating her words. Standing on that porch, I felt every moment of those 7 years press against me. Diane sighed loudly. "Are you going to stand there all night?" I didn't answer. I reached into my bag, pulled out my phone, and stepped away from the house. For the first time in years, I didn't explain myself. I didn't defend anything. I dialed a number I hadn't used in a long time. When the call connected, I said quietly, "Hi, it's me. I think it's time." I turned back toward the house as I ended the call. Diane was still standing in the doorway, like she owned it. Like she had always owned it. Mark stepped forward this time. "You're making a scene," he said. I almost laughed. "I'm making a scene?" I asked. He rubbed his face like he was tired. "Just don't do this." Diane crossed her arms tighter. "Who are you calling?" Another excuse. "No," I said calmly. "Just handling things." She scoffed. "You don't have anything to handle anymore. That used to work on me." Her voice. That tone. It used to make me shrink. Not anymore. Mark looked at my suitcase. "You can stay somewhere else for a few days. We'll figure things out." "We?" I asked. He didn't answer. I took a step closer, just enough so they both had to look at me. "Are you both sure," I said slowly, "that you want me gone?" Diane didn't hesitate. "Yes." Mark hesitated. That was enough. I nodded once. "Okay." Then I turned, picked up my suitcase, and walked away without another word. I didn't look back. That was the part that surprised me the most. I thought I would. I thought I would stop halfway down the driveway, turn around, wait for Mark to call me back. He didn't. Behind me, I heard Diane say something sharp. I didn't catch the words. I didn't need to. I reached my car, put the suitcase in the trunk, and sat in the driver's seat for a moment. My hands rested on the wheel, steady. For years, I had imagined this moment in different ways. In every version, I cried. I begged. I tried to fix things. This time I didn't. I started the engine. In the rearview mirror, I saw Mark standing in the doorway now. Diane was beside him, still talking, still in control. He didn't move. I pulled out of the driveway and drove away. Not defeated. Not broken. Just done. By the time I reached the end of the street, my phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer. "I'll be ready. Bring everything." I exhaled slowly. Everything. They had no idea what that meant. The hotel room was quiet. Too quiet at first. I set my suitcase down and locked the door behind me, leaning against it for a second. It smelled clean. Neutral. Nothing like the house I had just left. I walked over to the small desk and opened my bag. At the bottom, wrapped in a folder I hadn't touched in years, were the papers. I placed them on the table carefully. Each page told a story. Signatures. Dates. Clauses. Things Mark never read. Things Diane never even thought to question. I sat down and flipped through them slowly, like I was reminding myself of something I already knew. I wasn't guessing. I wasn't hoping. I knew. Outside, cars passed. Voices echoed faintly through the hallway. Inside, it was just me and the truth. I stopped on one page and let my fingers rest on the signature line. Mine. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes for a moment. Then I opened them again and whispered softly, almost to myself. They really should have checked whose name was on everything. When we bought the house, it felt like a dream. Mark was excited. I was careful. I'll handle the paperwork, he said. It's easier if everything goes under my name. I remember sitting at the kitchen table of our old apartment, looking at him. Why? For convenience, he said quickly. You trust me, right? I did. But I also knew better than to sign anything blindly. So I read everything. Every page. Every clause. And when I saw the section about ownership structure, I didn't argue. I didn't question him out loud. I simply asked the lawyer a few quiet questions. Then I made one small adjustment. One clause. Mark signed without reading it. I signed knowing exactly what it meant. The money for the down payment came from my account. The renovations? Mine. The closing costs? Mine. Mark handled the meetings. The handshakes. The image. I handled the reality. Back then, I told myself it didn't matter. That we were a team. Looking back, I realized something else. We were never equal. I just made sure I was protected. Diane moved in 2 years after we bought the house. It's temporary, Mark said. I believed him. At first, it was small things. She rearranged the kitchen. Said it made more sense her way. I let it go. Then she started commenting on everything. You're overcooking that. You should clean more often. In my house, we don't do it like that. I wanted to remind her it wasn't her house. I didn't. Mark asked me to be patient. She's just adjusting. But she wasn't adjusting. She was taking over. Slowly, room by room, decision by decision. She sat in Mark's spot at the table. Spoke for him in conversations. Corrected me in front of guests. And Mark, he stopped correcting her. One night, she looked around the living room and said, "Everything here belongs to my son." I remember that moment clearly. I smiled politely. I said nothing. But inside, I thought, not everything. I just didn't say it out loud. Not yet. People assumed I depended on Mark. I let them. It was easier that way. Mark had the job people saw. He talked about deals, projects, plans. He looked successful. I handled the accounts, the bills, the mortgage, the repairs. Every payment came from me. When Diane got sick, I paid her medical bills without a word. When the roof needed fixing, I covered it. When Mark wanted to upgrade the kitchen, I made it happen. He thanked me at first. Then he stopped noticing. Diane never noticed at all. To her, I was just the woman who married her son. Replaceable. Standing in that hotel room, I realized how deep that belief ran. They thought I needed them. They thought I would fall apart without the house, without Mark, without their approval. They were wrong. I was never the dependent one. I was the foundation. And foundations don't crumble when people walk away. They just stand. The changes in Mark didn't happen all at once. That would have been easier to see. It was slow. He started repeating things Diane said. Small at first. You should be more organized. Maybe you're overreacting. That's not how my family does things. At first, I thought he was just trying to keep peace. Then I noticed something else. He stopped defending me. Even when I was right. Even when Diane was clearly wrong. He would stay quiet. Or worse, agree with her. One night, I heard them talking in the kitchen after I went to bed. She's too controlling, Diane said. Mark didn't argue. That hurt more than anything. Lying in the hotel bed now, I replayed those moments. The silence. The distance. The slow shift. It wasn't sudden. It was built, step by step, word by word, and I had watched it happen. I just didn't stop it. Until now. My lawyer, Ava Brooks, didn't waste time. She sat across from me the next morning, flipping through the documents with sharp focus. Every now and then she nodded. Okay, she said after a long pause. Okay, I asked. She looked up at me. This isn't just good. This is airtight. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. You're sure? I asked. She tapped the papers. Your name is tied to everything that matters. The structure is clear. The clause you added? That's the key. I leaned forward. So, the house. She met my eyes. It's yours. Not shared. Not disputed. Mine. And not just the house, she added. You have leverage over everything inside it. Assets, accounts, all of it connects back to you. I sat back slowly. 7 years. All of it came down to this moment. Ava closed the folder. They made a big mistake. I nodded. Yes, I said quietly. They did. By the time I got back to the hotel, the story had already started spreading. Messages popped up on my phone. Are you okay? I heard you left. What happened? Diane worked fast. I didn't need to hear her version to know what she was saying. I walked out. I abandoned the marriage. I couldn't handle responsibility. People believed it. Of course they did. It was easier. I scrolled through the messages, then set my phone down. I could correct them, explain everything, defend myself. I didn't. Not yet. Truth doesn't always need to be loud. Sometimes it just needs the right moment. I stood by the window looking out at the parking lot below. Cars came and went. People moved through their lives, unaware of mine. Behind me, the folder sat on the desk. Heavy. Certain. I picked up my phone again, opened a new message to Ava, and typed, "Let's move forward." Then I added one more line, but carefully. The first step wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was precise. Ava filed a formal notice that afternoon. Clean, clear, direct. No threats. No accusations. Just facts. Legal ownership. Authority. Rights. I read through the document before she sent it. Every word mattered. This is enough? I asked. It's more than enough, she said. When it was delivered, I imagined Diane opening it. The confusion first. Then the anger. Then something else. Doubt. For years, she had spoken with certainty. Acted like she knew everything. This would be the first crack. I didn't call. I didn't warn them. I let the paper speak. That night, I slept better than I had in a long time. Not because things were over, but because they had finally started. My phone rang the next morning. Mark. I stared at the screen for a moment before answering. What is this? He demanded. No greeting. No pause. You should read it carefully, I said. I did, he snapped. It doesn't make sense. It does, I replied calmly. He exhaled sharply. You're saying the house is yours? I'm saying you signed something you didn't understand. Silence. Then, why would you do that? I almost laughed. Why wouldn't I? I asked. Diane's voice sounded faintly in the background, asking what was happening. Mark lowered his voice. This is insane. No, I said. This is clear. He hesitated. That was new. I could hear it in his voice. The shift. The first real doubt. Call your lawyer, I said. Have them explain it. Then I ended the call. For the first time in years, I didn't wait for his response. Diane didn't call me. That told me everything. If she were still confident, she would have. Instead, she pushed Mark forward. By the afternoon, I heard from a mutual friend that Diane was saying it was all a mistake. A paperwork error. She's confused. That almost made me smile. For the first time, she didn't sound certain. Mark called again later, but this time his voice was different. Mom says this isn't right, he said. Of course she does, I replied. He paused. Is it true? Yes. Another pause. Longer this time. I could almost hear the moment it hit him. The shift in control. The ground moving under his feet. I need to think, he said. Do that, I answered. When the call ended, I sat back and closed my eyes. For 7 years, they had shaped the story. Now it was changing, and they couldn't stop it. Ava called me that evening. "There's something else," she said. Her tone made me sit up straighter. "What?" I asked. "The financial records you gave me," she continued. I went through them again. And she paused briefly. "There are transfers. Large ones. Under Mark's name." "That's not unusual," I said. "I funded most of those." "I know," she replied. "That's the point." I stayed quiet. "These transfers don't match any shared agreements," she added. "They could raise questions." "What kind of questions?" I asked. "The kind that shift leverage," she said. I understood. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about control, about truth, about everything they assumed they could take. I looked at the folder on the desk again. "Keep digging," I said. Ava didn't hesitate. "I will." When the call ended, I leaned back slowly. They thought this was one issue. It wasn't. It was a pattern. And patterns don't stay hidden forever. The message came the next morning. "Can we meet?" It was from Mark. No anger. No accusations. Just that. A few minutes later, another message followed. From Diane. "Let's talk. Properly." I stared at the screen. For 7 years, she had never asked. She told. She decided. She controlled. Now she was asking. I typed my response carefully. "Tomorrow. My lawyer's office." Mark replied quickly. "That's not necessary." "It is," I said. Diane didn't respond. I set my phone down and exhaled. This wasn't about emotions anymore. It was about structure, about clarity, about making sure nothing could be twisted or denied. I walked over to the desk and opened the folder again. Everything I needed was there. Every answer, every proof. For years, I had stayed quiet. Now I was choosing when to speak. And where. The office was quiet when I arrived. Ava was already there, organizing papers on the table. "They're early," she said. Of course they were. Diane always liked control. Mark sat stiffly in his chair when I walked in. Diane sat beside him, back straight, eyes sharp. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Diane broke the silence. "This has gone too far," she said. I took my seat calmly. "No," I replied. "It's just begun." Mark looked tired. More than I had ever seen him. "Can we just understand what's happening?" he asked. Ava slid a file toward me. I opened it, then reached into my own folder. "Of course," I said. I placed a document on the table and pushed it toward them. Diane didn't touch it at first. Mark did. He read. Slowly. His face changed. Diane leaned over, scanning the page. "What is this?" she demanded. I met her eyes. "The truth," I said. I didn't rush. That was important. I let them read. Let them process. Let the silence stretch just enough to settle in. "The house," I said calmly, "is legally tied to me through the funding structure and ownership clause." "That's not possible," Diane snapped. "It is," Ava said evenly. I continued. The renovations, the accounts, the assets, every major financial input came from me. Mark looked up confused. "Why didn't I know this?" "You didn't ask," I replied. Diane shook her head. "This is manipulation." "No," I said. "This is documentation." Ava slid another page forward. "Everything is recorded," she added. Mark's hands trembled slightly as he turned another page. The confidence in the room shifted. It didn't disappear all at once. It cracked. Then it started to fall. Diane leaned back, her expression tight. For the first time, she didn't have an answer. Mark finally spoke. Not loudly. Not defensively. Just honestly. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" he asked. The question hung in the air. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I married. The man who stood silent while I was pushed out. "Because I wanted to see," I said slowly, "who you'd become without me holding everything together." His face fell. Diane scoffed, but it sounded weaker now. "That's dramatic," she said. "No," I replied. "That's honest." Mark looked down at the table. At the papers. At everything he had missed. Everything he had ignored. I thought, he started, then stopped. You thought I needed you, I said.
He didn't argue.
That's said enough. I sat back in my chair and folded my hands.
This isn't complicated, I said.
Diane straightened. It is. No, I repeated. It's simple. I let the words settle before continuing. You asked me to leave, I said. Now I'm asking you to do the same. Mark looked up sharply. What? He said. The house is mine, I said calmly. You both need to vacate. Diane's eyes widened. You can't be serious. I held her gaze. I am. This is ridiculous, she snapped. We live there. So did I replied. Mark rubbed his face again. This is too much. It's exactly enough, I said. Diane laughed, but it sounded forced. You're throwing us out now. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't change my tone. Yes, I said. The same words she used on me. Returned.
Calmly.
Diane tried everything. First, it was guilt. After everything we've done for you, she said. I didn't respond. Then anger. This is cruel, she snapped. You're tearing this family apart.
Still, I stayed quiet.
Finally, insults. You were never good enough, she said. That's the truth. That used to hurt. Now, it didn't land the same way. Because it wasn't about me anymore. It was about her losing control. Mark watched the whole thing. He didn't interrupt. Didn't defend her.
Didn't defend me.
He just sat there, seeing it clearly for the first time. Diane's voice grew sharper. Louder. More desperate. And I stayed exactly the same.
Calm. Still.
Unmoved. That's what broke her. Not words. Not arguments. Silence. Because she couldn't control it. When Diane finally stopped talking, the room felt different. Quieter. Heavier. Mark looked at me again, but this time, there was no confusion. Just realization. I didn't see it, he said softly. I didn't answer. I thought things were normal, he added. They were, I said. For you. He swallowed hard. I should have, he started, then stopped. Yes, I said. Diane looked between us, her expression tight. This is nonsense, she muttered, but her voice lacked strength. Mark didn't respond to her. That was new. He leaned back in his chair and stared at the table. At the papers. At everything laid out in front of him. I don't know what to do, he said quietly. I stood. You figure that out, I said. Then I gathered my things. For the first time, he didn't try to stop me. They left the house a week later. Not dramatically. Not loudly. Quietly. There were no neighbors watching this time. No audience. No control. Just boxes. Silence. Movement. I stood outside as they carried their things to the car. Diane didn't look at me. Mark did. For a moment, it felt like he wanted to say something. He didn't. He closed the trunk, got into the car, and drove away. Just like that. 7 years ended. I walked up to the door. Unlocked it. Stepped inside. The air felt different.
Still.
Empty.
Mine.
I closed the door behind me and leaned against it for a moment. Not from exhaustion.
From release.
I walked through every room slowly. The living room. The kitchen. The hallway. Each space held a memory. Some good. Most complicated. I opened cabinets, straightened things, moved small items back to where they belonged. Not Diane's way.
Mine.
The house felt larger now. Lighter. Like it could finally breathe. I stood in the kitchen for a while, running my fingers along the counter. This was where it started. And where it changed. I expected to feel something bigger. Anger.
Victory.
Revenge. I didn't. I felt calm. Peaceful. Like something heavy had finally lifted. For years, I thought strength meant enduring. Now I knew better. Strength meant knowing when to stop. When to stand. When to take back what was always yours. Months passed. The house changed. New colors. New furniture. New space. But the most important change wasn't visible. It was quiet.
Steady. Mine.
I sat in the living room one evening, a cup of tea in my hands, watching the light fade through the windows. The same windows. The same walls. A different life. Sometimes I thought about everything that happened. Not with anger. Not with regret. Just clarity. Diane thought she was removing me. Mark thought I would fall apart. They both believed the same thing. That I needed them. They were wrong. I leaned back and looked around the room. Peace filled the space. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just real. I took a slow breath and whispered softly. She thought she was throwing me out of my life. I paused, letting the silence settle. She was only returning it.